How are you all? And welcome to my YouTube channel first of all. Today I have come with a new topic of tax implications of activities of foreign enterprises in India. Okay. In our previous session I discussed about what is the taxation for an Indian entity which is operating internationally, which is having transactions internationally. But today I am going to talk about the taxation of activities of foreign enterprises of non-residents in India. So I think let's start here. We'll be reading in a quick brief and will be a quick revision of what all sections we need to read while understanding the taxation of the non-residents. Number 1, Section 9. Section 9 is very important section when it comes to taxing the activities of foreign enterprises. What does Section 9 says? Section 9 coins a term. I will give a term which is very important. Business connection. Is there any business connection with India? Any? By any means of imagination? So all the incomes which accrue or arise to a non-resident from a business connection in India will be taxed in the hands of a non-resident in India. Number 2, salary. If salary is earned by a non-resident for services rendered in India, then that will be taxable as income in India. Number 3, dividend paid by an Indian company. Whenever a dividend is paid by an Indian company, that dividend is taxed and will be taxed always in India. Then comes fees for technical services. Many a times non-residents come to Indian borders to render any kind of technical services or professional services or management consulting services. So we call it FTs, or something which can accrue as royalty. So if any FTS, fees for technical services, professional services, management consulting services, or the royalty service is rendered by non-resident in Indian borders and that business connection is established in India, that income shall be taxed in India. The fees for technical service may be paid to a non-resident by the Government of India. Number 2, resident of India. And number 3, fees for technical services, I repeat once again, may be rendered or may be paid to a non-resident by the Government of India or by the resident of India. Then comes representative assessment. Not necessarily every time the non-resident has to be in India to appear before the income tax department, but there needs to be a person or face who will have to represent that particular non-resident before the Indian income tax department. So the non-resident has the powers to appoint a representative assessee in India. Also, since the transactions performed by non-residents in India are sometimes very ambiguous, at that point of time they can opt for advance ruling by filing certain forms. Those forms are form number 34C, form number 34D and form number 34E, which are separately respective forms, and the judgment which will be pronounced by the advance ruling authority will be binding on the assessee only. That is a very specific judgment which is given to the non-resident assessee. After that, there comes a very interesting topic which is known as transfer pricing. Many a times when we talk about cross-border taxation, there is one thing which always comes into picture, and that is known as transfer pricing. If I don't discuss what is transfer pricing, my topic or my cross-border taxation topic would remain incomplete. So it's very important we need to know the nuances of what the transfer pricing is. Before understanding what is transfer pricing, we need to be very sure as to what is the objective of the transfer pricing. The very sole motive of the transfer pricing is to avoid shifting of income from high tax jurisdiction to lower tax jurisdiction. When an international transaction is performed between two countries, it has to be noted that many a times non-residents opt for paying tax in lower tax jurisdiction or the jurisdiction which has lower tax rates as compared to the jurisdiction with the higher tax rates. Something known as tax avoidance, tax planning, or you can say tax evasion. Okay. So in order to avoid that, transfer pricing law has come into picture. One of the more important objective of transfer pricing is to determine the arm's length price. ALP stands for arm's length price. The arm's length price says that whenever the transaction happens between the two countries, the price charged, these entities are known as related entities in common ordinary business parlance, but from the point of view of taxation, we call them associated enterprises. Now, associated enterprises is also defined in the Income Tax Act. Associated enterprises where two or more enterprises are there and one enterprise is holding 26% or more of the shareholding or voting power in the another enterprise, these parties are said to be deemed associated enterprises from the point of view of taxation. The transfer pricing or the international transaction is defined, or the transfer pricing law is defined in section number 92 to 92F of the Income Tax Act, whereas section 188 of the Companies Act 2013 talks about who are the related parties. Now, to compute the arm's length price, there are various methods which we shall be discussing in the further coming talk. Till then, stay tuned. Bye bye.